to our mind when we think of the solar system? What do the words solar and system even mean here? Solar means relating to or determined by the sun. And system? System means a set of things working together as a part of a mechanism. When we put these two definitions together, what do we get? We get the set of things working together as part of a mechanism determined by the sun, which, in other words, is the solar system. So what are these things that work together? I think we mentioned in our past video about the space being occupied by celestial objects like planets, meteors, meteorites, asteroids, and stars like the sun itself. These celestial objects orbit around the sun. Why do you think that is the case? This is due to the gravitational attraction between the sun and the objects. But here's another question. Why is it that these objects orbit around the sun and not the other way around? Can you guess why? If you remember our lesson on gravity, it is the light mass objects that are attracted to large mass objects. The sun, being the largest mass object in the system, attracts the other objects, which are of small mass compared to the sun, which is why they orbit around it. Let's learn more about a certain group of these celestial objects that are called planets. Now, how do we identify a planet? Is it different from other celestial bodies like the stars? If so, what are the differences? Planets actually have the same appearance as stars, but the factor that differentiates them from each other is that planets do not emit light of their own, while stars produce their own light. They also do not twinkle like stars do. Do planets travel in a specified path? Yes, planets orbit around the sun, each with its different paths, but in the same circular motion. Speaking of orbit, how do you measure the time taken for a planet to complete one revolution around the sun? It is called a period of revolution. The more distant a planet is from the sun, more will be the period of revolution. In other words, distant planets take more time to complete a revolution, while the closer one takes less time to complete it. It's kind of obvious because the circumference will be much more as the radius is more. Planets also rotate along their axis. We can also measure the time taken for a planet to complete one rotation. Can you guess what this measurement is called? That's right, we call it the period of rotation. The time taken to complete one rotation is called a period of rotation. Now that we know what planets are and how they are distinguished from other celestial bodies, how many planets are there in the solar system and what are they called? There are officially 8 planets in the solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Earlier, kids grew up learning about 9 planets in the solar system. But in 2006, the International Astronomical Union ultimately decided to call Pluto a dwarf planet, reducing the list of real planets to 8. These planets have their own moon, just like how we have our own moon, except some have more than one. Speaking of the moon, did you know that the moon is actually a satellite? You're probably thinking, how can moon be a satellite? Like, is it transmitting signals to our TV and radio? No, it's nothing of that sort. You're thinking about artificial satellites. We'll talk about that in another lesson. But again, the moon is not that kind of satellite. Let's see what it means then. A satellite is a celestial body revolving around another celestial body. Since the moon is traveling around the Earth, we consider the moon to be a satellite of our Earth. Let me ask you a question now. Is the Earth a satellite to the sun? If your answer is yes, then you're right. Since the Earth revolves around the sun, the Earth is a satellite to the sun. We shall now cover the different types of planets in the next lesson. We have named the 8 planets from our solar system in our previous lesson. Let's see what these planets look like and what their properties are. The first one is Mercury. Now this planet is the closest planet to the Sun and it is also the smallest planet in our solar system. Now, since it's really close to the Sun, it would be really hard to observe it from our skies during the day. However, there is a way to view it. Just wait for the sunset or sunrise time near the horizon and you'll be able to catch it fully. Just make sure there are no buildings or mountains in the way. There are no moons revolving around Mercury. The second one is Venus. This planet is close enough to our planet Earth that we could call it our neighbor. It is also known to be the brightest planet to be seen in the night sky. So where can we view Venus? Try to look out for it in the western sky after sunset. It's because of this kind of appearance that it's been given the name morning star or evening star, even though it is not a star. It also rotates completely opposite from the way the Earth rotates around its axis. The Earth rotates from west to east, meaning Venus rotates from the east to the west. Venus has no moons revolving around it. Let's quickly review what we learnt about Mercury and Venus. Mercury is the closest, smallest, and has no moons revolving around it. And Venus is the Earth's nearest neighbor, the brightest planet, rotates around its axis from east to west, and has no moons revolving around it. The third one is Earth. This planet is a very special planet. Any guesses why? Yes, it's special because 1. We live in this very planet. 2. We get to live and breathe on this planet because of the special environmental conditions that exist here. Like the heat we get from the sun, the water, a comfortable atmosphere, and thankfully an ozone layer that protects us from the sun's ultraviolet rays. The only reason you can see the Earth as a green-blue color from space is because of the reflection of the water and the mass of land. We already know that the Earth's axis is tilted and not perpendicular to the plane of the orbit. It is due to this that we are able to get different types of seasons like winter, summer, autumn, and spring. The Earth has only one moon. Yes, the very same moon we see in the night. The fourth one is Mars. This planet is the first one outside the Earth's orbit. This planet has been nicknamed the Red Planet because of its reddish appearance. Why does it look reddish? It does so because of the rusty color of its soil. Mars has 2 tiny natural satellites around it. What's the fifth one? It's Jupiter. This is known to be the biggest planet in the solar system. In fact, it is so large that you can actually place 1,300 Earths in this massive planet. What about its mass? Its mass is said to be 318 times that of the Earth. It also rotates at a super fast speed around its axis. And now we come to the most interesting point. Jupiter is said to have the largest amount of satellites. If you want to observe it, you can easily see it in the night sky with its moons due to its brightness. The sixth one is Saturn. It is said to be yellowish in color. This planet is unique from the other planets appearance-wise because of its beautiful rings. However, you can't see them with your naked eyes. You'll need to use a telescope for this. It is also said to be the least dense planet amongst all. Its density is even said to be lesser than that of water, which means it will float in water. And just like Jupiter, Saturn too has a large number of satellites. The seventh and the eighth one are Uranus and Neptune. So why did I mention these 2 planets at the same time? Well, it is because that these 2 planets are considered as the outermost planets in our solar system. The planets nearest to the Sun, like Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, are called inner planets and they have the least amount of moons. The planets outside of the orbit of Mars, which are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, are called outer planets and are said to have the most amount of moons. Now, coming back to Uranus, Like Venus, Uranus is also said to rotate from east to west around its axis. And speaking of its axis, it is completely tilted to a point where it appears to be sideways, making Uranus rotate from up to down instead of left to right. Neptune, the eighth and the last planet, is the farthest planet in the solar system. Its appearance is bluish and, like mentioned before, is said to have many moons. That's all we need to know about the planets for now. We shall talk about the other types of celestial bodies in our solar system in the next lesson.